Hi, in this video we're going to solve simultaneous equations where one of the equations is nonlinear. I'll explain what I mean by that in a second, and the linear equation requires rearrangement. Now remember that this first equation in this particular case would be the linear equation, and the reason it's called linear is because if you were to plot it as a graph, it would form a straight line. A straight line is linear. Linear just means straight line. And if you can, you can tell it's linear from the equation because any x and y terms that you have don't have powers. Whereas in this one, the x is squared, but also the y is squared as well. This is the non-linear equation, like this. And in fact, you might recognize this second equation as the equation of a circle. The equation of a circle that centered the origin will be of the form x squared plus y squared equals the radius squared. But let's not worry about that for now. Now, what makes it slightly harder is that in the linear equation, y is not the subject or x is not the subject. In the previous question we did, we could see that this linear equation, y was the subject, which made it a bit easier. And the reason that was easier is because, remember, we substitute the linear equation into the nonlinear one. So we need to substitute x or y from here into the nonlinear one. But to do that substitution, I need to make x or y the subject of this linear equation. So that's step one. Step one is make x or y the subject of the linear equation. Now, what's it easier to make the subject here, x or y? Well, x doesn't have a number in front of it, so it's going to be easier to make x the subject. Can you see, if I just had x minus 2y is equal to 1, to get x on its own, to make x the subject, we just add 2y to both sides. And if we do that, we get x is equal to 1 plus 2y, or 2y plus 1. And now x is a subject. And because x is a subject, I can now substitute this expression into the other equation. So where you have x in the nonlinear expression, I can replace that x with 1 plus 2y, because x is 1 plus 2y. So let's do that. We've got x squared plus y squared equals 10. So x squared, where the x is 1 plus 2y, plus y squared is equal to 10. And now we've got a single equation in terms of one variable, in this case y, so we just need to solve that equation to find the possible values of y. Now let's just expand this bracket. You could write out this bracket twice, and then just expand it in the usual way. But if you've got a bracket squared, the quick way you can do it is you do the first term squared. So you do the first term squared, 1 squared is 1. Then you do twice the product of the terms. So you do the first term times the second term. 1 times 2y is 2y, and then you double it. So you get plus 4y. And then you do the second term squared. So you do the 2y squared. 2y times 2y is 4y squared. So we put plus 4y squared, and we've still got that plus y squared at the end. Don't forget it, that y squared we have here as equal to 10. Let's just simplify. Let's collect like terms. We got 4 lots of y squared plus another lot of y squared, which is 5y squared. We got the plus 4y, and we got the plus 1 equals 10. Now remember, to solve a quadratic equation, we need to get 0 on one side. So I don't want that 10 on the right. I'm going to subtract 10 from both sides, and the 1 minus 10 is going to be minus 9, like that. Now I've got a quadratic here with 0 on one side. Remember, you need to factorize it at this stage to solve it further. But what makes this hard is that we've got a number in front of the y squared term. Now, in previous videos, we explored a technique called splitting the middle term, but we also explored a way where you can just sort of intelligently guess the two brackets, and particularly where the number in front of the y squared or the x squared is prime. It can only be 5 times 1. So it just makes it easier to intelligently guess the two brackets. So that's what I'm going to do to save time. 2 brackets when we're factorizing it. Now, if we think about the expansion, this term times this would have to give the 5y squared, and it can only be 5y and y because 5 can't be split up in any other way. Now we need these two terms to multiply to give minus 9. It could be 3 and 3 with one of them negative, or it could be 9 and 1. If you tried 3 and 3, you'll find that it doesn't work because this is 3. 3 times the 5y is 15y, and then you've got something too big to get down to the 4y. So I think it's going to be 9 and 1, We're not going to put the 9 here because then we'd have 9 times 5y, which is going to be big when we're trying to get to 4y here. So I think this is going to be the 1 and this is going to be 9. And then which way round is it going to be? I think it's going to be plus 9 and minus 1. Does that work? We've got 9y minus 5y is 4y, so that does work. Right, and now we say, well, if we make each bracket equal to 0, because remember, when the product of two things is equal to 0, at least one of those things has to be 0. So if the 5y plus 9 is equal to 0, then we can subtract 9 from both sides, and then divide by 5. So we get minus 9 over 5. And remember, the quick way to do this is that you negate this number, so the plus 9 becomes minus 9, and then you divide by the number in front of the y here. So it's minus 9 over 5, which is minus 9 over 5. And if we negate this, it becomes plus 1 over 1, because it's 1y, which is just 1. So the other value of y is equal to 1. So we've got the values of y which satisfy these equations, but these are simultaneous equations in terms of x and y. So we need to find the values of x which correspond with each of these values of y. Now, it's always easiest to substitute into the linear equation. And more than that, you want to substitute into the rearranged linear equation. Because look, you've got x in terms of y here, haven't we? We've got x in terms of y. So for each of these values of y, we can substitute it into this equation here, and then that will give you the x, right? So x is 1 plus 2y. Now, I'm just going to use my calculator for this. So 1 plus 2 times y. So if I make y minus 9 over 5 and just press equals, I can then just do 1 plus 2y. So 1 plus 2 times the answer, using the answer key, and that is equal to minus 13 over 5. And if y was 1, then 1 plus 2 times 1 is 3. So the other value of x is 3. And remember that you have to make it clear that this value of x corresponds to this value of y, and this value of x corresponds to that value of y. As long as you write these in the right order, so if that's the first value of y, and that's the value of x that corresponds to it, and that's written first, then it's pretty clear that these link up. And we're done.